Welcome back to our channel where we provide updates and undisclosed narratives on the royal family. We provide you with the exciting news Buckingham Palace releases, a shocking announcement about Prince Andrew. Many people see Prince Andrew, the Duke of York, being permanently withdrawn from all public responsibilities as a sign that Buckingham Palace is starting a new chapter of responsibility for the British monarchy. The palace's short statement said that they needed to assist the Duke's long-term well-being. This wording seems to have been selected deliberately by the institution to provide a calm and dignified picture of what is really a final retirement from public life. That one sentence puts an end to any discussion about whether the late Queen Elizabeth II's second son would ever return to formal royal duties. The move comes after years of controversy over the Duke's relationship with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein and the civil lawsuit filed against him by Virginia Giuffre. It is the end of a long-standing reputational problem for both the Duke and the monarchy he was born to represent. Many people who follow royal news were expecting this revelation, but it is also a big deal early in King Charles III's reign. The new king has stressed the necessity for a streamlined, publicly defensible monarchy, and this decision shows that he is serious about that goal. People have emphasized the carefully chosen phrase long-term well-being as a way for the institution to deal with a scenario that had become a constant problem for its image. People in the royal household say that the decision was not made lightly and came after long private talks that involved the king, his sister, Princess Anne, and top palace aides. According to reports, everyone involved agreed that the harm to the Duke's image from his prior connections and the scandals that followed was basically permanent, and that the institution's interests had to be preserved. From a royal administrative point of view, the decision to make this expulsion permanent is about more than just one person's destiny. It's a way for a hereditary institution that relies on public agreement and symbolic legitimacy to manage risk. The Crown's existence depends on a careful balance of personal honor, public trust, and the capacity to represent national ideals. When a senior member's personal issues put that combination at risk, the court of public opinion and the mechanisms of state patronage come together to put pressure on the government to take action. In this situation, the palace thought that maintaining the monarchy's general reputation needed a clean line between familial connections and the public image of the crown. Prince Andrew stayed in Royal Lodge, a 30-room house in Windsor Great Park, for a long time. The property used to be a clear sign of his standing as a senior working royal, but in recent years it has become a tangible sign of his forced isolation from the public responsibilities he used to play. Royal Lodge has been connected to senior royals for centuries because of its lengthy history and location near Windsor Castle. The size and location of the lodge show how strongly the family's private homes are linked to national symbols. The palace's decision makes that separation official and permanent. The Duke will no longer do official business for the crown. In real life, this signals the end of his time as an active member of the royal family and the beginning of his private life. In a symbolic sense, it means that he will have fewer rights and obligations that come with being a senior royal. A lengthy series of incidents that slowly made people lose faith in the Duke's judgment and behavior led to this result. The 2022 out-of-court settlement between Prince Andrew and Virginia Giuffre is a key part of that story. Reports say that the deal included a large sum of money, but the Duke did not admit wrongdoing. Even after the settlement, many were still worried and angry. People kept bringing up claims that he was connected to Jeffrey Epstein's circle of abuse, which hurt the House of Windsor's image over and over again. The Duke and his followers tried to fix his image, but they were confronted with doubt, media scrutiny, and pushback from groups that had formerly depended on his support. The palace seems to have come to the conclusion that the monarchy's existence and reputation are more important than family relationships, and that institutional integrity necessitated a split even from a close relative. The arc of Prince Andrew's public life makes it clear why the decision to end his public involvement is so important. He was born in 1960 and was known for a while as one of Queen Elizabeth II's most colorful and popular offspring. His full name is Andrew Albert Christian Edward. In the 1980s, he worked hard to create an image that was quite different from that of his older brother, who was more restrained. The press called him an action man prince because he was often seen as dashing and adventurous. His time in the Royal Navy during a time of conflict helped to build that image. As a helicopter pilot in the 1982 Falklands War flying Sea King helicopters on dangerous missions, he earned the respect of both the public and his military colleagues. The operational situations he faced demonstrated courage and active participation in national duty, which temporarily enhanced his status as a national figure. Even back then, however, certain parts of the Duke's personality and behavior hinted at problems that would come up later. Former naval colleagues and palace officials have said that the person's personality attributes didn't always fit with the rules of royal life. For example, they had a strong feeling of entitlement and were prone to acting on impulse. People who worked with him saw a guy who was accustomed to getting what he wanted and being spoiled. Some people in the royal household subsequently thought that this kind of favoritism may have long-lasting effects. As conflicts arose, the mix of entitlement and impulsiveness would become a common motif in evaluations of his behavior. Critics have said that the habits of rank and power may turn personal mistakes into institutional issues when the individual in question has a conspicuous public function. When Prince Andrew stepped down from active naval duty, he took on a clear public position in 2001 when he was named the UK's Special Representative for International Trade and Investment. In that role, he was expected to travel a lot, use his royal stature to promote British corporate interests, and build ties with business and political leaders all around the globe. His relationship with Jeffrey Epstein became stronger throughout the time he was doing these things. Epstein was an American investor who lived in luxury and had a large network of powerful friends. The Duke was said to visit Epstein's homes in New York Palm Beach and the U.S. often. The two guys became closer acquaintances when Epstein was already in problems with the law and getting a lot of publicity for it. At the time, those who supported the Duke typically said that the connection was a professional or social convenience, a way to get into powerful circles in international banking that might help British commerce and investment. Critics disagreed, saying that the relationship was unwise and poorly thought out, especially since Epstein had his first public run-in with the police in Florida in the mid-2000s. Even after Epstein was found guilty in 2008 of trying to get a child to have sex with him for money, the Duke is said to have kept in touch with him. This relationship would eventually be seen as disastrous for his image. When Epstein's larger network of alleged abuse came to light more completely after his arrest in 2019, photos and stories of the Duke's encounters with Epstein became permanent parts of the story. Two specific pictures caught the public's attention and became symbols of the scandal. One showed the Duke with his arm around Virginia Giuffre, who was then a teenager at Ghislaine Maxwell's London home, and the other showed him walking with Epstein in Central Park in Manhattan after Epstein had just been released from prison. The palace's capacity to stay out of the dispute was hurt by this kind of photographic proof. What fans could have called an unfortunate social connection has now become a permanent blight on his public image. In public life, pictures are typically the most important evidence. In this instance, widely shared pictures became symbols of popular anger and media attention. His public standing continued to drop, and it sped up when he gave an interview on the BBC show Newsnight in November 2019. The Duke agreed to a lengthy, unscripted conversation with writer Emily Maitlis. The goal was to clear the air and rebuild trust. Instead, the broadcast is largely seen as a huge public relations failure, an effort to be open that instead made people's worries more clear. Virginia Giuffre made direct accusations against the prince, and he gave explanations and alibis that many people found unconvincing or confusing. One of his reasons that he couldn't have been at a specific London nightclub that night, since he had brought his kid to a Pizza Express in Woking, quickly became a target for public ridicule and a sign of tone deafness. Another argument in which he said a medical issue kept him from sweating was also judged unlikely and too defensive. The fact that he didn't seem to care about the victims of Epstein's misdeeds may have hurt him the most. During the interview, the Duke did not show obvious concern for the people who said they had been abused, and he spoke about some of his previous behavior in a way that many people thought was contemptuous. The interview was supposed to be an honest way to defend oneself, but it instead made others think that the person was arrogant and made bad decisions. The immediate effects were huge. Many organizations, schools, and military groups that he supported cut relations with him. The fear of institutional contamination wasn't just about appearances. Groups were also anxious about how being connected to the Duke might affect their image and ability to raise money. The palace didn't have many options because of the resignations of patrons, public outrage, and media outcry. Buckingham Palace said on November 20, 2019, that Prince Andrew will step back from public duties for the foreseeable future. This remark effectively terminated his career as a working royal. People kept wondering whether a new king or queen may open up a path to recovery in the months and years that followed. Some people thought that once Queen Elizabeth II died in September 2022, the transition to King Charles's reign may provide family members a chance to slowly return to public life. Many family members were involved in state ceremonies surrounding the late Queen's burial as a way to combine their public duty with their private grief. Some people saw Prince Andrew's attendance at key ceremonial occasions as a sign that family devotion and tradition were still important. King Charles made it clear from the start of his reign that he wanted to change the monarchy into a slimmed-down institution, one that is more cost-effective, leaner, and in line with modern standards. That concept didn't leave much room for a high-ranking royal who was caught up in such a prominent scandal. The king and his advisors have spoken about the idea of a slimmed-down monarchy as a way to deal with both the current state of the economy and changing public perceptions regarding hereditary privilege. It means that there will be fewer working royals, a clearer line between those who officially represent the crown and those who are family members without public obligations, and a more open accounting of popular support. In this kind of system, there is less tolerance for reputational liabilities. It seemed more and more strange that the Duke was still living at Royal Lodge, an estate with over 100 acres that he rented from the Crown Estate. Even though he was theoretically allowed to stay there for the time being, the fact that he was still living on a large government-owned property without any official tasks seemed to go against the new king's goals. It was much harder when people started asking bigger questions about the money that sustained his way of life. Reports came out saying that the settlement with Virginia Giuffre was partly paid for by private sources, such as an inheritance from the late Queen. Those stories, whether they were verified in full or not, made people angry and added to the story that a disgraced senior royal was getting help from public or family resources without directly asking for it. At the same time, the ongoing expenses of security and upkeep at Royal Lodge, costs that were seen to be high, were criticized when the economy was tough for most people. Such impressions, irrespective of exact accounting delineations, have shown politically and socially detrimental effects. The media's ongoing attention on who pays for what in regard to the royal family has made the money side of royal life a public issue in a manner that it wasn't before. In a democracy where taxpayers indirectly pay for some of the royal family's security, and where the Crown Estate's relationship with the government is complicated, people pay attention when they hear that a senior royal who doesn't work could be using public or institutional resources. In this instance, the pricey security care of the estate and supposed donations from family finances made people angry and made them doubt their morals. Because of that context, MPs, analysts, and some members of the public all wanted more clarity and action. It was clear that internal tensions in the royal household were growing by the end of 2023. Some courtiers were worried that the Duke's staying at Windsor and what some called his intransigence regarding the rules of his residency were getting in the way of the king's attempts to modernize the monarchy. There were different opinions within the family. Princess Anne, who is known for being practical and stern, allegedly supported a strategy that balanced compassion with firmness, recognizing his role as a family member, but also making it plain that there needed to be clear limits. Prince William, who is next in line for the throne, was thought to have adopted a tougher position since any uncertainty about the Duke's role may hurt the institution's future legitimacy. Queen Camilla, who is also a practical voice, called for a clear solution to stop such harmful shocks from happening. The internal discussion was part of a larger institutional calculation, how to balance personal allegiance with the need to safeguard an office that is not just for one family member. Royal families have dealt with problems like these in different ways throughout the years, but the stakes are greater now because of the current media landscape and Britain's political climate. Some family members, aware of the anguish and shame of a public scandal, pushed for a discreet settlement that would avoid further public drama. Some others stressed the need of having a clear line to show the public and the political elite that the monarchy could control itself. The final course of action included parts of both approaches, a private family intervention, followed by a short, carefully written public statement. Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York and the Duke's ex-wife, was still very much present at Royal Lodge and spoke out publicly in support of her ex-husband. People took a lot of pictures of her at home doing things like running errands and taking care of everyday tasks. Some people called her a gatekeeper who tried to keep the media away from the Duke and keep his emotions in check. Some family members recognized her commitment, while others thought her advocacy made an already difficult situation much worse. People regularly paid attention to her public appearances and utterances, which brought the media's focus back to the Duke's affairs at bad moments, making it harder for the palace to control the story. The money side of things reached a breaking point. An internal audit of the royal family's spending, which was apparently part of a larger attempt to look at expenses more closely, brought to light the exorbitant cost of maintaining and securing Royal Lodge. When the media got hold of information about these kinds of spending, the public's anger increased even more. Headlines asked whether taxpayers were paying for the lifestyle of a disgraced royal, and the topic became a subject for Parliament. It was not possible for an organization that wanted to seem like it was prudent with money and in touch with what the people wanted to keep a pricey home for a senior royal who wasn't working. Then came a series of choices made inside the company. The palace used a strategy that was meant to be clear, even if it was conservative. King Charles gave the go-ahead for changes to Royal Lodge's administrative standing that made it obvious that it was connected to Crown estate holdings and not to royal property that was owned by individuals. The reclassification was presented as a routine element of managing the estate, but it also made it clear what the Duke could and couldn't do. Officials said that Prince Andrew may stay for a short time, but only under tougher rules and with the understanding that he would not be able to do any public duties. The announcement of the official decision was made to be short and to show care for the Duke's well-being. It was claimed that Princess Anne personally told her brother the news in a private meeting that sources said was both formal and kind. It is said that the Duke accepted the verdict without making a fuss in public. The palace made the deal official with an 80-word announcement within days. This ended a long period of internal discussion and public scrutiny. The immediate aftermath was extensively reported in the news and by the people. Both local and foreign news organizations stopped their usual programming to cover the palace announcement, and the story was on the front page for hours and days. Outside Buckingham Palace, the same situation played out. Reporters from the public interest gathered microphones ready and asked questions of a building that was quiet, which showed that the institution was determined. The statement got a lot of attention and comments on social media. Hashtags that stressed responsibility were popular, showing that many felt that an institutional consequence that had been long overdue had now been carried out. Many commentators and royal experts saw the decision as a key moment early in King Charles's reign, showing that he was willing to make tough choices to secure the monarchy's long-term position. One well-known assessment called it the monarchy's quietest abdication, a metaphor for how an important senior royal was taken out of public life without making a big deal out of it. There were conflicting emotions in the family. Some were relieved that they had averted further harmful scandal, while others were sad over the loss of a sibling from public life. People stated that Prince William accepted the decision as essential. After the announcement, Princess Anne allegedly stopped making public comments. Queen Camilla told staff not to make public comments, so the palace statement could have the official tone of the time. Those close to the home say that Prince Andrew's personal reaction was calm. In the hours following the public declaration, staff at Royal Lodge said he looked pale and withdrawn. He is claimed to have called King Charles briefly, which was the first time the two brothers had spoken directly in weeks. The discussion was characterized as short and businesslike, with the Duke saying he understood the decision. The declaration took away any chance the Duke had of returning to public life, and from now on his existence is supposed to be one of forced solitude. He will still be called Duke of York and other official titles, but he will no longer act as a representative of the crown. The British press wrote a lot of articles looking back at the events that led to this decision, such as the Epstein connection, the 2019 Newsnight interview, and the legal settlement with Virginia Giuffre. Most editorial writers applauded the king for making a strong choice and said that it was an essential step toward a monarchy that is more responsible. As the initial intensity of coverage receded, some observers started to take a more nuanced view, presenting the Duke's narrative as a contemporary tragedy fashioned by the corrosive consequences of uncontrolled privilege and a misguided feeling of entitlement. In this context, he is not a moral caricature, but a severely flawed person whose flaws show how weak institutions may be. The choice to take Prince Andrew out of public life has effects for institutions as a whole as well. It sets a precedent in the House of Windsor that heredity will no longer protect someone from the repercussions of substantial reputational harm. King Charles has set a moral line. The monarchy must now show that it agrees with modern ideals of honesty and responsibility if it wants to be legitimate in the eyes of the people. That realignment is causing disputes within and outside of Parliament about how the royal family is funded and organized. Questions regarding how much the public supports non-working royals and how public and private money is spent on the monarchy are becoming more important. The occurrence has therefore served as a catalyst for discussions on institutional change that were previously more theoretical. Another institutional effect is that this sets a bad example for other family members who could find themselves in the middle of a debate in the future. The palace's method, having a private family conversation followed by a short, straightforward public statement, could become a model for dealing with sensitive issues when the goal is to protect individual dignity while limiting public harm. That concept is based on an opinion about how media works today. Long public fights may make a problem worse, whereas a quick, clear action can meet calls for responsibility without keeping the drama going. But this method also raises questions about whether the royal family's internal processes are open enough to the public and Parliament when there are concerns about the possible abuse of power or resources. As this chapter ends, Prince Andrew will probably become even less visible to the public. He will still be called the Duke of York, but he will no longer be involved in public and charity life. His condition is a strong sign of the end of an age where royal privilege could in effect protect them from inquiry. The light that used to shine from Royal Lodge has faded, yet the monarchy has come out of this time humbled, but maybe stronger. The palace's careful, cautious, and eventually resolute handling of the situation shows that they are willing to cut relations with a family member in public in order to protect the crown. There are still a lot of mixed feelings in the royal household and among the public. There is a serious feeling of satisfaction that a long-standing reputational issue has been resolved in a manner that prioritizes institutional survival. There is also some grief about what this means for the guy who was born and raised to be a public servant and who used to be a symbol of a particular part of the monarchy's public face. But for the institution, the decision was clear. The danger of continuing to protect a senior royal whose presence hurt public trust was higher than the damage of openly separating the family member from official duties. People in the UK and throughout the world will look at Prince Andrew's situation as a test of how well hereditary institutions can adjust to contemporary needs. It brings up important considerations about how monarchs deal with the financial problems that come with having non-working royals, how they combine their private family loyalty with their public obligations, and how they deal with accusations that might hurt public faith. It also serves as a warning about the personal effects of being around bad people and of becoming defensive instead of understanding when serious accusations are made. For constitutional experts and political analysts, the incident underscores the interconnectedness between symbolic power and practical legitimacy. The monarchy's strength comes more from the idea that it represents the country's identity and ideals than from force. When a royal family member challenges that view, it may have a negative effect on political life, changing not just how people think, but also how likely governments and institutions are to keep things the way they are. The palace's decision might be seen as an act of self-preservation for the institution, an acknowledgement that symbolic institutions sometimes have to make tough decisions to protect their main roles. People who work at Buckingham Palace say that everyone there is quite aware that the monarchy has changed. The family has changed since a brother is no longer in public life. However, the Crown has tried to protect what is at its core, the continuity of institution over individual, by taking a public and irreversible measure to remove a source of controversy from its official ranks. In a media world that demands honesty and a public that wants people to be held accountable, the palace's actions might be seen as an effort to bring a centuries-old institution up to date with the moral standards of the 21st century. It is still too early to tell what will happen in the long run. For the monarchy, a clearer and more defensible public stance is an immediate gain. The incident has made people think more about government money and the role of inherited privilege in a contemporary democracy. For Prince Andrew, the effects are quite personal. He will have to live his life away from the public eye, always haunted by the choices and relationships he made in the past. The palace's statement, short, clear, and final, has already changed the story of the British monarchy in a manner that might change its form for years to come, no matter what happens in the future. In the end, this event shows how the relationship between the monarchy and the British people is changing. In the past, the royal family may have avoided long-term public criticism by being polite and quiet. However, in the era of digital media and higher civic expectations, they need to be more responsive and, when required, correct. The palace's handling of Prince Andrew's case could help people trust the monarchy more in the long run, but only if they follow through. They need to be more open about their finances, have a consistent way of dealing with scandals, and show that they are committed to the values that support the crown in public. The choice to take a senior royal out of public life is not only about getting rid of a potential problem, it is also a message about what the monarchy expects from its representatives and how it will protect the values that support its role in public life. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, and share it.